Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
We are continuing with our literature unit for the month of June. And the book we're talking about today is The House of the Scorpion, which is a young reader's novel that was published back in 2002, which is talking about the future, okay? So this may be, 100 or 200 years in the future or something like that?
Oh, no, maybe more like 20.
Okay, not so far in the future. Okay.
We've got some of this technology already. This book was written quite a while ago, but like I said, some of this technology is now being unrolled or they're unveiling it. So let's go ahead and talk about the plot. The plot, of course, is the story of a novel. And as Tom said, this is a young reader's novel. And a lot of young readers really like this. This book won awards. We'll talk about that in day 3. Now, when we left you in our last program, we found out that Matt discovered that he was indeed a clone. He was treated horribly by people. And he did get to meet his genetic father, his father who provided the DNA to, create him, I guess you could say, in a cow's body. El Patron, he's a drug lord. He's already 140 because they've discovered something that will keep these rich people alive longer. Of course, the poor people die because they don't get their hands on that stuff. So he also has met Tam Lin, a bodyguard. He comes to trust him, and then he's also got his friend Maria. We're going to move on and read day 2 and find out what happens next. In the middle of a festive occasion, El Patron has a heart attack, and Matt is brought to him. The dreadful truth is finally made clear to Matt. Clones are used for spare parts, and the old man needs Matt's heart. Although El Patron provided a privileged, comfortable life for Matt, his motives were always selfish and corrupt. But before Matt can be put to sleep and butchered by surgeons for El Patron's benefit, Celia and Tam Lin save him. With the knowledge and expertise he has gained from his surrogate parents, Matt flees to Aztlan. Although Matt finds safety in Aztlan, he faces many challenges as he makes his way in a new society, with rigid new rules and its own set of flaws. For example, in opium, imprisoned people known as Egids do all of the menial work. They never rebel or express discontent because computer chips in their brains reduce them to little more than robots. This practice horrifies the people of Aztlan, but in an orphanage there, Matt sees the social pressures of brainwashing brought to bear against disadvantaged people. He stands up to this heartless system and faces violent consequences. With the help of friends he's made at the orphanage, Matt forms a scheme to escape to the nearby town of San Luis. His friend Maria now goes to school there, and Matt is able to rest in security for a brief time at her side. Before long, though, he is charged with going back to opium to destroy its international drug production and trafficking businesses. Can he right the great wrongs of his predecessor, El Patron?
Okay, let's talk about the contents of today's lesson. Again, we're talking about identity and free will in the House of the Scorpion. Who are you? What's your identity? How do you describe yourself? And also we're talking about free will. Are we able to make our own decisions in a free society? And again, the book is The House of the Scorpion. So now let's continue with the story. In the middle of a festive occasion, El Patron has a heart attack and Matt is brought to him. So a festive occasion could be a big party or a big dinner party or something like that. And El Patron is probably so excited about all the attention that he's getting, he has a heart attack, which which means something's wrong with your heart and you have serious physical problems there, and a lot of people die from heart attacks. And Matt is brought to him. Again, Matt is the clone son of El Patron. And the dreadful truth is finally made clear to Matt. Clones are used for spare parts, and the old man needs Matt's heart. So here he learns the truth. Gee, I'm not really his son. My purpose in life was simply to be spare parts for other people. And this is not a new plot line. I think I've heard about this before in different stories. They have clones made, or sometimes parents have a second child because the first child has some kind of problem. So later on, they might have to have an organ transplant for that child or something like that. But yeah, this is the dreadful truth. Oh no, I'm just used for spare parts. So yeah, if you're going to donate your heart to someone, you have to die.
Yeah, that'll pretty much kill you, I think you could say. Now, it says here that he had been provided a privileged, comfortable life by El Patron, but El Patron had bad motives. They were sinister, they were evil, because they were always selfish and corrupt motives. If you have a privileged life, it just means you have special advantages. You probably are raised in a family that has money and access to good educational opportunities. Maybe you live in a good part of the city. Some parts of cities are more dangerous, where those families are just trying to stay alive because there's a lot of violence going on. Well, he had a privileged, comfortable life, but as he finds out, El Patron's motives were evil. So if your motives are bad, it just means the reason why you do something is not morally good or morally right. So a motive is just your purpose or your reason for doing something. Sometimes people have good motives and sometimes they have bad motives. Sometimes, it's a little of both. We don't know. So your motivation is the noun form of that word, and motive is also a noun, the motives behind something. What's your motivation for writing that beautiful piece of music? Or what was your motivation in applying for a job? What were your motives in asking that cute girl out? Do you like her?
Yeah, so of course, sometimes when they're trying to solve a crime, they need to figure out what the motive was. Why would Mr. A kill Mr. B? What's the motive there? If there's no motive, then it's unlikely that that person actually killed somebody else. So here, of course, the motives from El Patron were selfish and corrupt. He didn't really care about Matt at all. But before Matt can be put to sleep and butchered by surgeons for El Patron's benefit,
Yikes.
Celia and Tam Lin save him. So they're going to put him to sleep, and they're going to kill him, and then they're going to cut out his heart and transfer it over to El Patron. And Celia and Tam Lin, of course, are friends of Matt, and they save him. And with the knowledge and expertise he has gained from his surrogate parents, Matt flees to Aztlan. Okay, so he's saved by Celia and Tam Lin, and he's got some knowledge and expertise that he gained from his surrogate parents. Your parents, of course, are your mom and dad, but if they're your surrogate parents, they're not your real parents. They're just people who are playing the role of your parents. Maybe they're your adopted parents or something like that. Your substitute parents, you could say that. And he, of course, got some knowledge from them and some expertise. So here we've got the word expertise. That just means special knowledge in something. It's expert skill or expert knowledge in a particular field. Okay, so you might have certain expertise in engineering, for example, and you get hired a lot as a consultant.
Right. So it's something that you've had extra training in, you're quite good at. So when he finds out what's happening, he decides to flee to Aztlan. Aztlan is that country that's south of where he's living, I believe. Now, if you flee, it means you run away, but you do it very quickly because there's some sort of danger or maybe harm is about to come into your life and you want to get away. You flee. A lot of times criminals, after they commit a crime, they flee from police or they flee that city. They want to get away quickly. But sometimes some bad people are after you and you also need to flee flee or get away quickly. So yeah, he flees and he finds safety in Aslan, and he faces many challenges as he makes his way in a new society. So this is a completely new life for him. He lives in a new area with rigid new rules. If rules are rigid, it means they're not flexible. You can't change them, you must obey. And it has its own set of flaws. Some people will leave, a particular town or country and want to go somewhere else because they think it will be better. And they get there and they find out, oh, this place has problems too. And that's what this sentence means. So this Aslan has its own set of flaws. Flaw is some sort of imperfection, problems, and so he finds out, wow, even in this new place, I've got to deal with some things that aren't very nice, some flaws, and those rigid new rules.
Exactly. So that's where he is now. And what are one of those flaws? Well, we've got an example here. For example, in opium, imprisoned people known as Egids do all of the menial work. So if you're imprisoned, of course, you're in prison. You have been taken prisoner by the government because of some crime. And they are referring to these people in this book as Egids. And of course, they have to do all the hard work or menial work. Menial work is difficult work, but also very boring work that needs to be done over and over again, like working in a factory or working in the fields or something like that. And Egypt, I think, is a slang term for idiot.
Yeah, it comes from Ireland. It's Irish slang, and it just means you're an idiot, you're foolish, you have no common sense. So yeah, the menial work is tough to do, and it's also very low paying. So they never rebel there or express discontent because they have computer chips in their brains, and that's reduced them to little more than robots. So if you rebel, you say, I'm not doing it. To rebel is to defy. Remember, we talked about what defy means day one. You say you're not going to obey. But these folks never rebel, and they never express or show discontent. Discontent is unhappiness, meaning you're not happy with your situation, you're dissatisfied with your circumstances. But these people doing menial work, these Egids, they just do as they're told, and they kind of act just like robots. If you use that phrase little more than, it just means you are what that word that follows the phrase means. Little more than Egids. You could say, I'm little more than a slave to my parents. So you do all the work that your parents want you to do. That's a joke. So they're little more than robots. Sounds like they don't have much of a personality.
Yeah, they're basically robots. There's really no other way to define them. And that brings us about to the midway point in our explanation for today. Here comes our Chinese teacher.
听众朋友大家好，我是安娜。我们昨天带大家开始看《蝎子之家》这本小说。好，故事是这样子的，在今天呢就发生了。有一次呢，在喜庆的场合中途 ，El Patron 他的心脏病突然发作了。所以 Matt 就被带到身边啦，准备开始要把他的心脏给他。可是 Matt 因为明白了有一件可怕的事实，就是 clones 复制人其实是被当成 spare parts， 是人类的备用零件，因为根本没有把人当成一个人。可是到底有没有逃离这个危险呢？其实在手术之前Celia 跟 Tamlin 就把 Matt 救出来了。那么他们后来怎么逃的呢？是凭借着从代理父母那里所获得的知识还有专业的技能， Matt 才逃到另外一个，也就是在鸦片王国南方的 Aztlan 这个地方。好，所以呢，虽然 Matt 在 Aztlan 就找到了安全的地方，但是其实他是进入一个有严格新规定还有自身的这个缺点的新社会当中啊，其实还有很多的挑战呢。我们在第二段的第一句当中看到一个连接词 as， 在这里的话呢，其实是要翻成 when，当什么什么时间是比较通顺的。那么比如说会有哪一些挑战呢？例如在鸦片王国当中，有一些被称为呆瓜的这些囚禁者，就会从事所有的 manual work， 一些卑贱的工作。 我们在看到这一段第二句的第二段第二句这个地方，从 for example 之后有一个关系子句的简化哦。先行词是 imprisoned people， 就是被监禁的人，被囚禁的人。从后面的 known 到 Egypts 这个地方可以左右括号，省略的是 that are。Be known as 是以什么什么身份出名，或以什么什么身份为大家所认知，所以这些被称为 Egypts 呆瓜的这一些囚禁的人 do all the manual work 就会做所有卑贱的工作，而且呢他们也不会反抗 rebel， 也不会表达一些 discontent 一些不满，因为他们的大脑有电脑晶片 chips 有植入了，会让他们知道的跟机器人差不多。我们来看一下，同样在第二段第三句的这个地方 little more than robots， 在句子最后的地方 little more than， little 是几乎没有， a little 才是一点点的意思，所以在这句话当中要特别注意哦。言下之意就是电脑的晶片让这一些所谓的被称为呆瓜的囚禁者，其实跟机器人差不了多少。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. We're on day 2 of our literature unit, and we're talking about the House of the Scorpion. So we know at this point that Matt has fled to Aztlan because he's found out that his father, or his genetic father, El Patron, wants to use him for his heart. Because remember, El Patron has had a heart attack.So he wants to get out of there fast. So before they can put him to sleep and open him up and take out his heart and give it to El Patron, he flees. And he goes to Aztlan and he finds that they have some challenges there with their society too. They've got a lot of rigid or very strict rules. And they have these people that are referred to as Egypts, they're imprisoned, so they don't have any freedom there. So they do all the menial work. They never rebel. They don't ever show that they're unhappy because they've got computer chips in their brains. So I'm sure that whoever is controlling those computer chips, can program them to do what they want them to do. So they're kind of like robots. Now, this practice horrifies the people of Aztlan, but in an orphanage there, Matt sees the social pressures of brainwashing. If you brainwash people, especially disadvantaged people, they don't know any better. They don't know that they're not hearing the truth. If you're disadvantaged, you don't have the opportunities that some privileged people have, some of the people with power and money. So he stands up to this heartless system and he faces violent consequences. It sounds like they're going to hurt him.
Exactly. So that's what's happening there, and that's what Matt is discovering.
Yeah.
Brainwashing and computer chips, not computer trips. That would be different. Maybe that's cyber vision or something like that. But yes, these are computer chips that control people's minds. And yes, the people are working in factories, doing menial jobs and stuff like that. But he stands up to this heartless system. So if you stand up to something, that means you say, no, I'm not going to take it anymore, despite the fact that you'll probably be taken prisoner, you'll be beaten, you'll be tortured, and probably killed eventually.
Yeah, but they have a lot of courage, these people who stand up and fight the power. Sometimes you're fighting government.
Indeed, and here in the final paragraph it says, with the help of friends he's made at the orphanage, Matt forms a scheme to escape to the nearby town of San Luis. So, yes, he's got some friends there, and they're going to work together, and they've come up with a plan or a scheme. Kind of a plan, again, to escape to the nearby town of San Luis. So they're all going to get away, and they're going to go to San Luis, and maybe they'll be free there, and they'll be able to get more organized and move against the society.
I don't think we talked about orphanage. That's one of the words that we saw in the second paragraph and now again in the third. An orphanage is a place that children who have lost their parents go to live and they grow up there. Now, some of the kids who are referred to as orphans are adopted by other families, but sometimes they are not. So maybe they don't have any other family members that can take care of them after they lose their parents. And so they grow up at an orphanage, and that's where he's found some friends. So he's made them at the orphanage. And if you come up with a scheme, kind of an idea to get something done. Sometimes when we use this word scheme, there's this feeling about the word that means that maybe it's a little sneaky, a little tricky. It can be for bad people planning, to do, illegal things, but it can also be someone who's trying to keep their plan kind of quiet and not let everybody know about it. So they've got a scheme to escape to a town that's nearby called San Luis. Now, his friend Maria goes to school there, so that's probably one of the reasons why he wants to go to San Luis.
Indeed, because Maria is there and he's able to rest in security for a brief time at her side. So yes, he's safe there. He can rest in security. His enemies won't be able to come and find him, especially his so-called father's friends won't be able to come and find him and bring him back and do that operation on him to give the heart to his father. Although I think maybe by this time the father is already dead from that heart attack. We don't really know. But in any case, yes, he can be safely there at Maria's side in the town of San Luis. Okay, so in the next sentence it says, before long, though, he is charged with going back to opium to destroy its international drug production and trafficking businesses. So usually when we say someone is charged with something, that means somebody is accusing somebody of a crime, okay? You're charged with murder or you're charged with robbery or something like that. But in this particular case, you are given this job or you are given this responsibility. So he is charged with this job. He is given this job to go back to opium and destroy the international drug production and trafficking businesses there. Drug production, we can understand that. Trafficking means you sell it and then you transport it.
Yeah. So, sometimes you're charged with completing or accomplishing a particular task by your boss. Maybe he's charged you with starting up a new team to accomplish something. So it just means someone said, okay, we're giving you the responsibility to go and do this. So it's a pretty scary responsibility they've given him. He's got to go back to opium, where, of course, they're searching for him because he's escaped, and he's going to try to destroy its international drug production and trafficking businesses. So like Tom said, trafficking is like buying and selling and moving whatever you're buying and selling from one place to another. We use trafficking to talk about drug trafficking. Human trafficking is where you sell people to other people to be used and sometimes tortured, murdered, raped. It's horrible. So yeah, he's got a pretty big responsibility, and he's probably not that old at this point either. So I would say Matt's a pretty brave kid. He's probably somebody that these people look at and go, oh, I think he could do it. I want to wish him a lot of luck, though. It says here, can he right the great wrongs of his predecessor? If you can right the wrongs of somebody, it means you go back and you try to correct the things that somebody else has done that were bad or illegal or wrong. He's got a big task ahead of him.
Yeah, and it's very risky, of course, when you deal with those drug lords. It can be pretty messy business there. They are not nice people, to say the least. Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. It's time now to listen to our Chinese teacher.
那当然啦，这种做法，这种 practice 就让 Aztlan 的很多的人民都吓坏了。但是呢，在那边的有一家孤儿院当中， Matt 就亲眼看到了洗脑 brainwashing。 对于弱势团体 disadvantaged people 带来的那些社会压力。好，我们来看一下同样第二段第4句的地方。首先先注意 practice， 在这里不是练习哦，而是某一种做法的意思。那么在句子比较长句子后面的地方，我们看到有一个 brought， 这里的 PP 指的是被带来，可是为什么会出现一个被动式呢？因为逗点之后met 加上的动词 see 是一个感官动词，感官动词 see someone doing something， see something done， 后面可以直接加受词，再加动词 ing 或者是 PP， 所以在这里的话，句子看到的是 met 看到这些所谓的洗脑带来的社会压力 brought 被带来的 to bear against disadvantaged people 对于弱势团体被带来的这些社会压力，所以 Matt 就很勇敢抵抗这种无情的制度，但是同时也面临一些暴力的结果。不过还好，借着他在孤儿院结交的朋友的帮助之下， Matt 就制定了一个逃亡的计划 a scheme。 在第3段这个地方的第1句同样出现了一个 with， 也可以表示原因，也可以表示工具方法凭借。不过后面有一个关系子句哦，先行词是 the help of friends， 因为 with 之后介系词之后只能加名词，所以其实到这里 the help of friends 语义大概就已经到这里结束。可是要再补充说明一下是什么样的帮助呢？ he 到逗点这里可以左右括号，那么省略的是一个冠带 that。不过要特别注意一下 he 这边打的一撇 s， 这里一撇 s 是 has HAS 的缩写哦。好，那么制定了计划之后呢，在他们决定要逃亡到这个 St. Louis。St. Louis 就是 Maria 在上学的地方，而 Matt 逃到那边则可以暂时保持安全。不过不久之后呢，他又被指控重返鸦片王国，摧毁国际毒品的生产非法交易非法的这一些交易的业务，发生了很多危险。到底故事的结局如何呢？可能要自己看一下这篇小说才会知道哦。不过我们明天还有一天，我们要针对这个小说做一些这个作者的解说，还有文学的评论，所以别走开哦，我们明天见。
That's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and please join us again next time when we will actually talk about the author of The House of the Scorpion, Nancy Farmer. So please join us then. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.